We've gotten to a point now where we know if a shock is going to work or not before we actually put in a bike.
It's not your typical workshop or web store, it's a bit of everything. There's quite a lot of things going on all at once.
These things are going to be out in the world and they're going to be taken on tracks or maybe in the middle of nowhere. So it's really important we get it right.
There's a lot of technical knowledge and there's still so many things that I don't know, and I'm always learning new things and I find that really engaging and useful.
There's a lot of work that goes into all of our hard parts in our kits. I think that's what sort of separates us from larger companies. We're not just like some whole team that's showing up to work just to get a paycheck. We all genuinely want to make the best products.
My name is Nick Dole. I started Teknik on the 15th of May 2001. I predominantly started it as a former Ballard's employee, and we were doing mainly suspension tuning, fair bit of engine work. And I left there and moved over here. That was 24 years ago, 23 years ago. I started Teknik because I really just enjoyed it. So I began with BMX bikes, and then in February '83 I just picked up this magazine, the newsstands, Australasian Dirt Bike, and I read all about the adventures of Jeff Eldridge, Murray Watt, and it was captivating. It was great to read, and the whole magazine was really well put together. I think I bought every issue of Australasian Dirt Bike from that point up until maybe the early 90s. So I had mountains of Australasian dirt bikes everywhere. From there, I decided that I needed to get a dirt bike of my own. So I knew my Uncle Jeff had dirt bikes because his kids had bikes. So the next time I pestered my parents enough to go round to Uncle Jeff's place, I went under the house and found a Deltec rock hopper. What a Deltec was a kit bike made in the 1970s, a Victor lawnmower engine powered bike. So I convinced my parents over about a month that I needed to drag the rock out from under Uncle Jeff's house, drag it home and fix it. From there, I ended up with a pile of 3 different engines that my Deltec could use at any time. And I experimented with different engine capacities, different configurations, different exhausts, different carburetors, while terrorising the backyard. A guy that I'd known for some time, Bradley Robertson. Bradley and I also love bikes, but he was actually racing them competitively. He was getting a Honda through Rick Andrews Motorcycles, and he had a CR85 Honda and a CR125, and I started to help Brad do maintenance work. And then from there, his brother Darren had a 1983 model KX85, which Bradley's father Jeff very kindly loaned me. And I started to do events at the St Ives, Ku-ring-gai, Mini Wheels training ground. So all through the late 80s and early 90s, I'd had bikes in one form or another. I started my apprenticeship on cars in about 1990. I've been doing a Bachelor of Science before that, and then racing bikes at the same time. I've always been very mechanically curious. I've always pulled things apart and put them back together again as a kid, and I was always trying to work out ways to make things work better. So when a job came up at Ballard's in the late 90s, it was a good time for me to transition. So I'd always had bikes, always worked on my own bikes, so I was then able to move over. Ballard's was reasonably intense in that we ran a Honda motocross race team in Thumpernats. We ran a Honda off-road team with CR125, CR250s and XRs. We ran a Yamaha off-road team as well with TTR 250s, WR 400s, WR426s, YZ250s and YZ125s. So I had to basically take care of those two teams as well as being the workshop. When Jeff and I made the decision to part, I bought most of the tooling off him and moved over here. One of the things I didn't realise was that how hard it would be for basically a motorcycle suspension business at that time to get parts. I found that one of the hardest things. So we started to import our own parts very early on because we just couldn't get parts. And then probably shock seals were the first product we actually did because again, we just couldn't buy them. So I had, I think Haulite seals were probably the first people that actually make seals for us. And that's something that has continued on. So in the early days, it was very much a repair business only. And we did everything. Engines, suspension, tyres. We put exhaust systems on bikes. At some point in the last 25 years, I bought suspension dynos, chassis dynos, various pieces of testing equipment. I'm always curious as to why I like buying testing equipment, and it largely comes back, I think my science background has a little bit to do with that. I don't really love trusting people's opinions. I would rather have something that I can both listen to what their opinion is and also have some data, something to actually back it up. So in about 2014, we decided to discontinue engines. We really needed to stop working on engines as well. So we'd begun making our own suspension upgrade kits in about 2006. I had a guy called Andrew walk through my front door. Andrew wanted to improve the action of his forks on his CBR 250. So Andrew, in SolidWorks, I believe, had completely drawn his front forks. And he came in asking me, hey, how do I make these things work better? And I said to him, who drew these forks up? And he said, I did. And I said, what did you draw them in? And he explained to me how he drew the forks up. So I had a quick chat with Andrew and decided that Andrew would be much better off working here. That's how the production of our own parts really kicked off. And it's funny because we still have all of those drawings that we did back then.
My name's Nick, but to avoid confusion, you can call me Polly. I do the R&D here, so that involves all of our kits and a lot of our hard parts. So that's from concept to design to manufacture and then testing. Being surrounded by people like Nick and Kurt, it's really helpful. It just helps me to understand exactly what's going on with suspension, because it's a bit different from anything that I learned. So my day-to-day here is pretty different every day. Some days I'll be in my office all day, designing things with SolidWorks, speaking with suppliers, manufacturers and all that. Some days I'll be on the floor here, trying to do R&D for kits. The most recent thing that we've put out that I'm proud of is our Tenere 700 kit. So we've become pretty well known for our Tenere setups here. I've designed a kit with Nick's help. You can send it to pretty much anybody in Australia that's a suspension specialist and they'll be able to install it. So I think we're different in the fact that we're not particularly focused on motocross like a lot of them are. I think we're sort of more in the adventure bike space, as well as just hard parts. You still need seals, you still need bushes, you still need a free piston in S forks that doesn't explode. So I think we're geared more into that rather than, glorious MX bike kind of stuff. So put the same amount of effort into something like a bush as we would anything else. So I think it's quality stuff. I think that's what sort of separates us from larger companies. We're not just like some whole team that's showing up to work just to get a paycheck. We all genuinely want to make the best product
So my name is Izzy. I look after our warehouse and logistics department. I've been working here for about 18 months. I love it. Yeah, it's completely new to me. I've never done anything similar to warehousing before, but I really enjoy it and I enjoy the technical knowledge that I've gained. I didn't think I'd be interested in suspension at all, but working here has really shown me that it's really quite interesting and something that I enjoy, yeah. I've gotten my license recently and like bought a bike and everything, but it's like kind of something I've always wanted to do, but never really went, you can actually do that. So yeah, kind of cool. This has kind of propelled me into actually getting my license and buying a bike and all of that. So day to day, looks completely different every day. I oversee the picking, packing and dispatch of all of our orders, so just checking that we have stock of everything and everything's correct. We get lots of orders in every single week, so receiving invoices sometimes, unpacking stock, counting stock, making sure it's all correct. I do quite a bit of like inventory management and stock take, so making sure that we have the quantities that we say we have. And I also do our kit assembly, so I build a whole bunch of different like upgrade parts, valving kits, conversion kits, so build all of those and package them and either pass them on to the workshop or send them out the door. We have about, I think it's over 10,000 products available on the website right now to order, back order. So there's a whole bunch of like products to choose from. We also have like, I'd say over 1 million different shims in the warehouse on hand at any given time. So yeah, there's a lot of parts going on. There's a lot of things coming in and out the door. There's a lot of like tolerances, so measuring things to make sure that they're within a certain size. Otherwise they won't fit in the fork tubes or fit in the shock or perform correctly. Measuring every single shim that goes into a kit, which sometimes there's 20 plus different shims that go into one assembly in one kit. So like measuring all of those, making sure that we've labeled everything correctly and we're actually using the products that are meant to be used in the kits. I use like my verniers, calipers, a whole bunch. They're like always with me. I have a like socket set, torque wrench. Love the torque wrench, it's so useful. We have like 3D printed trays so that I can have heaps of assemblies built at one time and then use that to torque them to the correct specification. I just enjoy it. I feel like it's something that is a lot better for me than like previous jobs. And I like, again, like I like the technicality. I don't like being bored at work. I like learning new things, and the attention to detail that I have to have when building a kit is quite engaging for me. And I like that there's a lot of like technical knowledge and there's still so many things that I don't know, and I'm always learning new things, and I find that really engaging and useful in a job.
Hi, my name's Bruce. I'm the General Manager stroke Operations Manager here at Teknik. I generally just look after things to make that place run as efficiently as we can. So nothing too sort of admin heavy or sales heavy, it's just mostly keeping the place stocked in and out, customers happy, staff happy, trying to create a good environment to work in. I fell into the motorcycle industry by accident. I was back in my misspent youth. I was somewhat unemployed, and a friend of mine got me a job picking parts at the warehouse at Suzuki back in the early 80s. I've managed to stay in the industry for the last 40 odd years from there. So I didn't have a real interest in motorcycles when I was younger. I sort of grew into it. From there I got a job in a bike shop. I've worked for wholesalers. I've worked for a few bike shops. I had my own business for a little while with a business partner, doing classic motorcycles out of Japan. Got out of that, had a huge range of motorbikes over my life, mostly road bikes, mostly the classic stuff. Slowed down somewhat now, just spacing time to work on old bikes is really difficult. A few years ago I was working in a bike shop, decided I needed a bit of a change. Nick was looking for someone to help him sort of keep this place a bit more organised. Not that it was disorganised, but just to make things just a little bit more efficient. And just like a bit of a background in doing that. So mostly I've done spare parts, is my biggest background. But I've done a little bit with accounting and admin and operations of different bike shops. You know, run workshops, run spares, done a few different things. So picked up a bit of experience in a lot of different areas, which sort of suits this small business where you don't have a single role. You've got to sort of do everything that needs to be done. So a little bit of front of house, a bit of admin in the background, and a little bit of staff development and training and keeping everybody happy. You know, we want to keep a nice, relaxed atmosphere in the place all the time. It's not your typical workshop or web store. It's a bit of everything. We've got to do R&D and whatever. So there's quite a lot of things going on all at once. So dynamic is probably a good word to describe the place.
My name's Kurt. I'm the lead technician here at Teknik. I do a lot of the workshop work, a lot of R&D, a little bit of everything, lots of service work, help the engineering department, talk to customers, dealers, other techs around the country, train the apprentice, try and keep things running smoothly down here in the workshop, handle things coming in, jobs going out, test ride everything, test new bikes, test bikes that we've worked on. Pretty much everything. I am the man. I am the dude. Good chance is if you've called the workshop, you've probably spoken to me. So I probably started working on bikes when I was a teenager, just mucking around with whatever I had at the time. Got an apprenticeship many years ago now, I won't say how long, make me feel old. And just have continually been around bikes and motors and things like that for years now. Always looking to just keep myself busy and keep learning and just get better and better, find new challenges and pretty much whatever takes my interest. You know, love racing, race an R6, ride trails on the weekends, so I kind of do a little bit of everything. Keeps me pretty busy. I carry a pretty high standard of work here, whether it's putting a shock together, a fork together, or even just making sure it looks clean and presentable for a customer. We also have to realise that these things are going to be out in the world and they're going to be taken on tracks or maybe in the middle of nowhere, so they've got to perform well. So it's really important we get it right. We do lots of R&D for new bikes coming out. We kind of keep an eye and see what's popular, what people like, what people don't like. With our last bike, it was a Royal Enfield, and we got lots of phone calls from people. Hey, I've got a Royal Enfield, what can you do? And at that point, nothing, because we hadn't seen one. Bruce has organised to get us one, and it was real easy. Got it in, had a look, did a bit of reading about it, took it for a ride, it wasn't too bad. And then we get in here, take a lot of measurements, do a lot of numbers and a lot of dyno testing. The process looks straightforward on paper, but can take a fair amount of work to get them right. That's what makes our dyno so important. That in itself can take a lot of time to get used to. It's not like we just write up a spec, put it in and put it out in the world. We test it. If it's good, then it's good. If it's not, which it usually isn't, we go again and again and again until we get the targets we need. Comes down to just being very patient and very thorough. So being a rider, you really sort of put yourself in a position where you know what you expect out of a bike, and I really want our customers to have that same sort of expectation and feeling and when they get our products. Yeah, always working to be better. We test every fork and shock set that leaves here. And just having these dynos here is really critical, so we know 100% that what goes out, it works. It can tell you if you've got the slightest sort of mistake in there. That's a really big QC process that we're pretty big on. I'm not sure how many shops out there are doing that sort of thing, but it's really important.
We've gotten to a point now where we know if a shock is going to work or not before we actually put it in a bike. And it doesn't matter who we're buying it off. So we've bought some shocks off some pretty big names, and we test them and we can make a determination on how we think the shock will perform. I always find it's very important to not tell the person who's buying it what we actually think of it, because it just gives them a bit of unconscious bias that we don't want. I want to hear from them what they actually think. And then if they come back to us and say, this shock doesn't really work how I thought it would, I can talk to them about the external adjustability of it and how they could use that to improve it. But ultimately, if I know the shock really needs work, then we normally work it out early. So it really depends on what the shock is going to be used for. We also have an unusual situation in this country. We tend to use adventure bikes far harder than anyone else does in the world because the country's bigger. We've got bigger distances, we've got bigger roads, we've got more corrugations, we travel longer distances. So we find a lot of the product that should work, it just doesn't. We ended up from a workshop end doing adventure bikes more because it's an interesting market. It's something that has a real Aussie angle to it because Aussies tend to get adventure bikes and just use them much harder. So in Europe, in countries like Belgium and Germany and France, they don't really have adventure bike areas, or if they do, they're not that big. They don't have endless corrugations, they don't have culverts and washouts and woo boys, and they don't have the Victorian high country, and they don't have just sitting on a bike at high speed for hours on end. They just don't do it. So what we find, anything out of Europe is always much more angled towards touring and comfort. What we do in Australia, European suspension manufacturers have described to me as motocross. And I've told them, it's not motocross, this is just how we ride adventure bikes. And they will say to me, if the wheels leave the ground, it's motocross. And I've said, we've got a completely different idea of what an adventure bike is. So here an adventure bike, its wheels need to leave the ground pretty often. And we obviously have different customers with different needs. Some of them will say, I don't jump things. Some of them will say, I occasionally jump things if I'm just coming up on them a bit fast. Others will say, oh yeah, I jump every spoon drain I can find. So they're all a bit different. The Yamaha Tenere, as an example, we've been getting really good results using largely OEM internals. And we've been doing that now for 5 years. But what we wanted to do was go a bit better and actually produce a kit that our dealers could just buy and the public can just buy. So they can get all of our R&D expertise in a kit and just buy it. So that's what a lot of our kits are. They're saying, rather than sending the suspension to us, you can just buy it as a kit from us. One of the adventure riding situations I always keep in my mind is our customers doing 110, 120 kilometres an hour on an outback road, and suddenly they see that the road before them is gone. There's a creek there, there's a dip, it's just a hole. They're going too fast, they can't pull the bike up, so they have to go across it. And all they've got time to do is grip the tank a bit with their knees, try to stand up a bit, wind on some throttle, and that's it. They don't have time to do anything else. And we get fairly frequent emails back saying, I just did this and I thought I was going to die. I thought I was just going to, they'd have to call an ambulance once they found me. And I just got through it. And I don't know how it actually happens. And so that's largely the work that we do, but they just don't know that it's going on. And that's because we do spend a lot of time trying to make things not necessarily, it has to be everything. It has to be safe, it has to be comfortable, it has to be capable, and it has to be durable. One of the other things that we do that I don't know that anyone else actually in Australia is doing this is we're pretty big on durability testing, which is why it can take us a long time to get things out. Because I don't like just making things and just going, oh, here you are, public, and then working out the durability sometimes after that. As an example, we're experimenting with a concept which is going to be Tractive by Teknik, where we put our own specifications into the Tractive product to essentially Aussie-fy it. So you can ride it hard and jump it and all those things. So we've got a Tenere 700. It's with Joe Morgan in Queensland. And I've just told Joe, send us the suspension back when you've done 5 to 10,000 Ks. Because after that amount of Ks, we'll get it back, put it back on the dyno. I want to see what's happened to it. I want to make sure the damping's consistent, we haven't lost too much. Pull it apart. How's it actually going? Is it hanging together? Is anything damaged or bent? So that's the process for us. It's not that fast, because it's all very well for us to test it here, but then where does it go from here? Well, you've got to put it in a bike and someone has to then try to break it.
So we do physical testing. There's realistically no better test than testing something in its real environment, being sensorized. We are getting some data logging equipment that we're going to use for testing in real life, so that's going to come in really handy, and just to validate that all of our things are working together.
That way we can put it on a customer's bike and say, go and test this, and to start recording, push this button, to stop recording, push this button, and if anything weird happens, push that button. And that way we can get all of the information back, so we don't actually need to go testing with them. On top of doing our own drawing and doing our own testing, we got a couple of 3D printers a couple of years ago, and they've been great, but we're going to move to actually being able to rapid prototype ourselves. So on top of 3D printing, we're going to get a small machine, so that way we can actually produce parts to prototype. What that will mean for our customers is we can just get our products out into the market quicker, because one of the motorcycle industry challenges is things change quickly and you need to be able to respond to the market quickly. We're going to keep on doing the best job we can with both Showa and KYB parts, with Tractive and our other brands, and do the best job we can in supporting the dealer network. We need to do more work on training, on technical training for our dealers, because that's something that the market doesn't really have. We're going to continue to invest in testing equipment, and we're going to continue supporting the brands that we import. At a glance, people would think that we have competitors, but a lot of the time they're actually our customers. So we've worked pretty hard on not competing with our customers, because we don't want to. We are quite unusual in that, say, our fork springs and our shock springs, we do all of the R&D on them here. We do all of the design work, and we have them made for us in Holland. So we're the only company that's bringing in our own line of springs. Other people import springs, but they're not their own brand. As far as our upgrade kits go, we're only really doing a fairly small range of kits. We'll probably expand that at some point, but we also don't want to compete with our customers at the same time. So some of our customers do make their own kits, and I don't have any desire to compete with our customers. I actually want to work with them. I don't want to work against them.
Our dealers and customers have pretty high expectations of the products and services we offer here, and that's why me and Nick and Holly work so hard and put so much effort and detail into it, to really be able to withstand the sort of conditions that we have here in Australia. Having said that, it means if it works here in Australia, it's probably going to work wherever else you might end up in the world.